Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m., Tuesday, January 8th. Welcome to the regular board meeting for the Fargo Board of Education. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda? Jim?
I move approval of the agenda with the addition of an HR addendum to be added to item 7C.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. I actually have a request on the consent agenda to move 7A and B onto business for some small adjustments, if that's okay with the rest of you. Is there anything else? Okay, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to the third item on our agenda, celebrating successes report, mentor program. Missy, I understand you are going to be making an introduction this evening.
You bet. Tonight, we have under Strategic Initiative 6, Goal 6, Comprehensive New Teacher Mentorship Program, and we'll have Joyelle Johnson do the overview, and we really appreciate her leadership and innovation as we provide support to our new teachers.
All right, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. So I've presented about the mentor program a few times to you in the last couple of years, and usually that involves sharing some statistics and some numbers with you. And tonight I will do the same, and I will also share with you what really makes our mentor program unique. So I'm going to start with two numbers for our new teacher induction program. We have hired roughly 100 new professional staff in the last 8 months. And on average, we hire 70 to 100, so we are at the high end this year, which is great. And out of those 100 professional staff, 38 of those are considered our first-year educators. And that is the second largest cohort we've had in the last 7 years since we relaunched this program. Last year was our largest at 45. So, if you can recall, our mentor program received recognition as a powerful practice from the Advanced Ed Accreditation External Review Visit in the spring of 2016. And what that means is a powerful practice is considered a notable achievement. And some may ask why Fargo Public Schools mentor program is a powerful practice. So I'm here to share that with you tonight, so that if you're at dinner with some great folks that are interested in our local mentor program, you can share some of these sound bites with them. The Fargo Public Schools, what differentiates us from a typical program? First, it's the time spent with our new teachers. In a typical program, meetings happen occasionally, which means sometimes mentors and new teachers will meet maybe monthly, whatever they can find the time, as they might meet as needed, which then happens to be not very much. And so with Fargo, we provide sanctioned and frequent interactions. And thanks to our state, North Dakota Teacher Support System, they set those requirements, and they hold our mentors accountable for meeting weekly meetings with our first-year teachers. In fact, the North Dakota Teacher Support System, I'm just going to put a plug in for them. Without them, our program wouldn't be what it is, because they do set our requirements, they do hold us accountable, and they do provide funding for us. And they're up for legislation every few years. So if you ever hear that, I'm just going to put that in your back pocket for our funding. And any district that really applies to work with the state does follow these sanctioned and frequent interactions as well. If you want to hear from one of our new teachers around these meetings, this new teacher says, "I think the opportunities I've had to reflect and work with my mentor have made the biggest impact. Those conversations led to direct changes in my teaching the very next day or even the next hour. I was able to work through problems in the classroom with my mentor and create solutions right then." Now, the next couple pieces that really differentiate Fargo from a typical program are differentiate from even the state. We go above and beyond what the state requires, because we can. And this next piece is about ongoing support. In a typical program, teachers are supported in their first year only. Fargo goes beyond that. We provide multi-year support, because that's what research says we should do. And in fact, just to share some numbers with you from this year, again, we hired 38 first years, all who have received a mentor. We hired 22 teachers that came with 1 to 3 years experience. They also received a mentor because research says that teachers need to be supported within their first 3 years. So we do try to honor that. It's not as intense as first years. It equals out to be about every other week intense time. We have teachers who come to us with lots of years of experience, and they want a mentor. And so we do try to honor that if we can, if we have the budget and we have the mentor capacity. This year we have 5 that are being mentored. And then we have what we call in our program second years. And those are the teachers who were first years last year. So now we can call them our second years, because we do provide support for all our first years for 2 years in a row. And that's what makes up our program, and we right now have 102 teachers in our mentor program. And the third piece that makes us a powerful practice is the offerings that we give to our new teachers. These are all the things that we provide. We have our new hire orientations, which we've had for years. This year we had 60 out of our 100 attend orientation this summer. And you might wonder why 60 out of the 100. Unfortunately, we do hire late in August, so not everybody is able to attend. But HR and our teaching and learning department do work hard to make those up. We also offer new hire meetings, and these meetings really are aligned to our strategic plan and our district initiatives. So they're catch-up training. For instance, MTSS, or the multi-tier support system, using data, Marzano. All those are offered, and teachers can select which sessions they need and that fit to their context. And they do receive a stipend or a grad credit. We have a beginning teacher network, and that's specifically for our first-year teachers to address their concerns in classroom management, parent-teacher conferences. And we partner with Southeast Education Cooperative, and they provide that service for them. And again, under that induction umbrella is mentoring. So again, that's our 102 teachers that are being mentored this year. And then those that come with lots of experience and do not need a mentor receive a buddy. And so they get a buddy that answers all their questions that are specifically needed at the beginning of the year. And in a typical program, these offerings may not even exist. There might be a few, or they might not even be required. Another piece that makes us different from a typical program is our mentor professional development. It's pretty intense. In a typical program, it might be insufficient. It might just be a little, it might be a couple days in the summer and then not touched after that. In Fargo, we provide multi-days. We have a few days throughout the year for our new mentors and their professional learning. We also provide infield coaching on their mentor practice, which really accelerates their practice. Our new mentors and our veteran mentors get together in PLCs a couple times a year, which we call our mentor forums. And then they also have a person to go to, which is the program lead, which is myself, for any problem-solving, troubleshooting, or questions they have. This is a quote from Ellen Moyer, who is the New Teachers Center's CEO. "Nothing is more important to students than the quality of their teachers, and nothing is more important to new teachers than the quality of their mentors." Which brings me to the last piece. Our mentors really focus on high leverage practices. They really want to create a habit of mind for our new teachers. And our new teacher center, excuse me, I just got over a cold, so I'm trying to. So the New Teacher Center is a organization, national organization, which we consult with. And they really help prepare our mentors to not only support, but accelerate their teacher development. And they say that this can be done through 3 high-leverage practices: analyzing student work, lesson planning conversations, and quality feedback. In a typical program, because of the limited training, mentors might receive some training on how to give some feedback and observe teachers. With Fargo, we go above and beyond that because of our intense training. And this is some statistics. In our last survey, we asked our teachers. They had a list of maybe 20 topics, and they were asked to pick what are the top 6 areas that your mentors focus on. And you will see that those top 3 high leverage practices made the top 6. So that quality feedback, the analyzing student work, and lesson planning. So it is being done within our program. And if you want to hear from one of our mentors, this mentor says, "My favorite activity to do with new teachers is an analysis of student work, and then planning for the next steps, because that is where much of the learning is done for teachers. They no longer think that their students know something. They know that their students know something. It leads to good conversations about standards and how we assess student mastery of the standards." So these are 5 reasons what makes our mentor program unique. Again, sanctioned time and frequent interactions, multiple years of support, multiple offerings to our new teachers, intense and ongoing professional development for our mentors, and really focusing on high leverage practices that really accelerate new teacher development. I want to leave you with this one thing too. This is what we're currently working on, is a continuum of support. And so for the last few years, we've really been focusing on that middle piece, the induction and mentoring. And what we're finding is when we ask teachers in their first years where they got their experience, and they will say their student teaching gave them the most experience in preparing for their first years. So we really want to maximize that experience, and we've been partnering with West Fargo and Moorhead Public Schools and our local area universities to create a cooperating teacher training, and we hope that we can roll that out this fall and really provide some quality experience for our student teachers that are in our district, and hopefully will go on to be our first years. And on the other end of the continuum is our in-service career coaching. And really, because of our mentoring, it's really opened the doors to coaching for our veteran teachers. They just want more. After they've had the mentoring, they want more feedback. And that's great, because it really helps with anything that we want implemented. And according to this research by Bruce Joyce and Bev Showers, you can have a consultant speak to a room full of teachers and on a specific strategy. And if they just talked at them, there is really a 3% chance that those teachers are going to go back and implement that strategy. That's not very much. If that consultant modeled that strategy, there's a greater chance, 10%. If the consultant had those teachers role play and practice, it jumps up to 40% chance of them implementing that strategy well in their classroom. And if those teachers were able to go and observe others implementing that strategy, it jumps all the way to 80%, which that statistic is the reason why in our mentor program we have our new teachers go out and observe others, because of that high probability. And then the last and the greatest is, of course, that 90%. If they were to receive quality feedback on their strategy that they're trying to implement, that increases the probability of them implementing it well, which is why, again, we want to go back to coaching and really focus on that as well. So there's our continuum. I'm going to end with this quote: "When principals, mentors, and teachers have the skills they need to improve instruction, students succeed." So, any questions you might have?
Robin?
Two questions. One's for you. Thank you, Joelle. And then
Yes.
maybe a finance question. So teachers are required, new teachers are required to partake
In mentoring,
in the mentor program itself.
yes, if they had come with 3 years of experience or less, they are, yes.
Okay. And then the
They do offer.
mentors receive a stipend.
And mentors receive a stipend if it's outside of their role. So there are some roles, like our strategists, and it's part of their job is to mentor.
Got
They
it.
do not receive the stipend from the state, but those that are classroom teachers and go above and beyond, they do receive that stipend.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then one last question on state funding, and I'm not quite sure who can answer this. You talked about funding was coming from the state, and of course, that's probably where we can help you the most in advocating for that.
Yes.
Can you help us understand how those dollars funnel down to the district? Is it through the per pupil formula or a mentoring grant, or?
Yes.
You know, great.
Well, okay, so if it's directly to the mentor, it goes right to the mentors, and that's kind of help fund that. Those that are part of that role, we still receive that funding. It doesn't go directly to those mentors because it's part of their job. It goes into a fund for the mentor program, and it rolls over and provides some of the services that we provide here. And, yes.
So is
And
that-
and we use some of our Title II dollars as well.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. And then the state funds come down, not through the per pupil fund, it's a separate mentor. Okay.
It is, yes.
Great, thank you.
Brian?
Are principals involved in directly or indirectly in this process?
They are involved directly. I didn't even mention that here. I have in the past. The mentors and new teachers are required to meet with the principals twice a year in a triad meeting, as well as I meet with the principals to let them know what services or who's mentoring who and how much. We do have an activity log that the mentors record all their activities, and I do provide that for schools that have a lot of mentors and can't keep track of that. And and we do provide online training for the principals when they're new to the program. So there is lots of involvement.
One more. I imagine you guys have a lot of best practices that you talk about.
Absolutely.
David, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Joelle. When is the new hire orientation held?
This year, it's held twice, in July, middle of July, and we get about 50% of them to attend. Typically, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, but typically in my experience. And then again, August, it's usually in the teens, August. Actually, this year, I don't even know if it was probably August 9th and 10th held this year.
Are there any new teacher instruction or orientation during the preschool workshop that just prior to school opening?
There is not, only because those are designated for buildings and district. Is that what you're,
Yes.
yes.
But
We do try to do makeups prior to those days, or when school starts, we probably sometimes have to get the sub, release them a couple weeks into school.
But that day in July and that day in August, they are paid, those are paid
Yes,
days.
they are paid.
Why don't we just add those to the front of the new teacher workshop so we can get barely 50% participation isn't very good to me.
It's more than 50, well, barely,
60 out of
the
100,
100.
60 out of
Yeah, that
100.
was this year's, yes. From what I know, and maybe Bob or Missy, I can defer to you on that. I don't know if that's possible.
West Fargo does it.
Does the,
They have the new teachers come in, I think, 2 days before the rest of the teachers come in for new teacher workshops.
Rupak, do you have something to add?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's something that we could take a look at too, as we look at when we plan for PD at the beginning of the school year.
Anyone else have anything to add on that regarding that question? No? Okay, Jennifer?
I have a different question. I'm curious how many mentors within FPS? And then I have one more question.
yes, there are 50, around 50, 49, 50.
Okay.
I didn't look at my numbers right before I came, and that's typically 50, it's either 49, 50, 51 every year.
Typical number. And then my second question is related to funding, to build on what Robin asked. So the funds from both the title funds as well as the other state funding, is that enough to cover the program completely, or are we pulling from other areas too?
Yeah, at this,
It is.
at this
Okay.
point.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Rupak.
Yeah, and just to kind of capitalize on that as well, I think Joelle knows this, but last week, the Department of Instruction from North Dakota came in and did an audit of all of our federal programs, including our Title II program. And during the exit conference, one of the specific things that they recognized about our district as a highlight in terms of how we use our Title II dollars and the biggest impact it has on students was this new teacher mentor program that we have in our district, to the point where they said they wanted to get the documentation so they could model it for other districts across the state. So kudos to Joelle and all the work that happens there.
Jennifer.
Can I just say, to build on that, and kudos, I just want to say the career coaching piece that you're building, I think is a great addition, as well as the collaboration that you are doing with the other districts, K through 12 and higher ed.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Wonderful program.
Thank you.
On to a guest report, Fargo Public Schools Development Foundation Annual Report. Becky Baki, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me tonight. This year we're doing, usually you have one report and we send you a packet. This year we're doing it a little differently. We kind of you have a green card in your folder, which is kind of a snapshot of last year's funds and how they were spent and how they were utilized across the district. As you can see, they're broken down by percentages with some dollar amounts underneath. Roughly 10% goes to innovative education grants this past year, and that is done through 2 grant rounds annually. One that's due at the end of or at the beginning of October, and one that's due at just coming up here at the beginning of February. And we also fund literacy projects through our Eleanor Lang Law Fund, and those are due, I believe, the end of March, and they're for the next school year. So this past year, we spent about just a little over $53,000 on grants back to teachers in the district and staff and students. And I think the most exciting thing about them is just the excitement we see from the teachers, the extra things that they get to do in the classroom to already enhance the great education they're receiving. So they're always fun to do, they're fun to give, it's a fun process. The other thing that we process a lot of scholarships. We're just coming into scholarship season, updating applications. This coming year, we have some new scholarships to add to some of the schools. It's kind of nice to see that happen. People establish scholarships every year and to increase those opportunities for kids as they go on to post-secondary education. Last year we gave out just over about 50 scholarships. That includes Dollars for Scholars, about 16% of the funds that we distribute, and a little over $92,000. Another thing we do is we hold funds for various projects across the district, and when people have specific designations, we pass those funds on through back to a wide variety of things in the district. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Jackie and her staff, because we send a lot of paperwork their way, especially Patty Richards, who's very tolerant. She does a lot of passing of funds on to Fund 70 codes, and it's a great way to get money back to the district and a great way for you to see how it's used. So thank you for that. The other program that we have actually increased a lot of spending on is the critical needs program. This past year was about 18%. You'll have a further breakdown of that in your packet as well as blue one. It goes more into depth of exactly where those dollars were spent. And that, we were really blessed by a very successful Giving Hearts Day. We had, I think, $42,000 in match, which we were able to meet, plus we raised 92 total. So we were able to give that back to the district in a wide variety of ways, which is broke down in that blue document. A lot of it goes back. Every semester we give each school and programs critical needs funds broke down based on free and reduced school lunch numbers, and we also give it back to hybrid food pantries at each high school and Woodrow Wilson, as well as food pantries in the middle schools. And then there's people who have, donors who have specific designations to school, goes to the Got No Milk program as well, all under that critical needs umbrella. So we were really amazed at how generous our community is and surprised that we made that match plus more. We're again blessed this year to have match for that program. Again, through the DMF Robin Leanne Jordan Family Fund, they provided us with $30,000 for match for the Critical Needs Program, and Haley's Milk Run every summer has a run, a motorcycle run, excuse me, to raise money for milk, and that was another $11,500. So we have $41,500 again for match. It's on Valentine's Day this year, so it's a little bit easier to promote. So we look forward to hoping to meet that goal and maybe a little more again, so we can continue to fund the Critical Needs Program and help kids in need so they can take advantage of their education. One program that's really taken off this year is the Seeds for Hope program, which began as a seed maybe a year and a half ago. It's a collaborative program that unites Metro youth in grades K through 5 that are participating in after-school and summer programming, and it introduces them to explore and experience career exploration, along with educating families about financial preparation for post-secondary education. What we have is a short video that'll kind of encapsulates the program really well. It's a nice snapshot of the impact of it so far. We were lucky enough to receive a Bremer grant this past year that helped fund that. Hopefully that'll get renewed. We'll see. We haven't heard back on that yet. But my coworker, Corey Ernst, is really, she's in charge of that program. So if you have any questions after about that, she'll be able to answer those for you. Baseball.
The inaugural Walk into the Future event has made a great impact on the YMCA of Cass and Clay counties in Fargo, North Dakota. It can be seen through a group of third graders that are setting up their college dorm rooms and picking out their roommates, and also going to their after class work job on campus at the coffee shop. Or the first grader that says, I want to be a scientist someday and study prehistoric animals. It's been fun to see the kids practicing CPR and setting up their salons. These are kids that previously did not think that they would have a future in these endeavors. Although now, their pretend games of today are a reflection of what their futures can be.
Our entire community can benefit from the Seeds for Hope initiative. We know that youth that participate will be more likely to attend some type of post-secondary education. Families will receive a financial boost for their college savings. It's a great recruiting tool for all types of post-secondary institutions, from the trades to your traditional four-year colleges. Community champions can feel good about giving children a brighter future. Youth will feel supported by their community and are more likely to stay. And perhaps the best part, Many youth that never thought they'd have a chance to further their education after high school will now have the hope to do so.
Any questions?
Does anyone have questions?
Could I expound a little bit about the Seeds for Hope?
Please do.
So this program started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and there's 3 components to it, really. An education standpoint, after-school programming and summer programming, the kids K through 5 received evidence-based curriculum on career exploration, which is really a push right now from our greater community and workforce as far as exposing them to not just 4-year degrees, but also CTE. So 14 months of evidence-based curriculum, the Y and the Boys and Girls Club and the Youth Commission kids all received through the summer. The second component is what you saw, and that was called Walk Into My Future, where they toured NDSU. Next year, it's MSCTC, M-State. The following year is MSU. I mean, the campuses are really excited about this, too, because it's recruiting for them. At that NDSU event, there were not only the major campuses, but also some Home Builders Association, Joseph's. So anybody, any institution that kids could use $529 on, any post-secondary type endeavors. You saw science experience, you saw the ambulance and CPR training. The kids, half of them went through booths, the other half toured the campus. So they got to experience the campus itself. And the campuses are very excited about this and lined up for the next couple of years. And the third piece is a savings piece. We're working with the Bank of North Dakota on 529 accounts for every student in the district. We know that kids that have any money in savings for post-secondary are 7 times more likely to seek some type of post-secondary education. So what our next step in, we're just starting to roll it out. In fact, we have training tomorrow morning on the software, is community champions can actually donate $25 to a children's savings account, and parents can either match it or it can be just a gift to some of our lower income kids. And as they progress through this program, they can continue to earn dollars through their 529s. The best way to comparison is like Boy Scout patches. For everything that they do, they can earn another $25, and they can continue to grow their education savings account. And of course, we know starting at a younger age with compound interest, they're more likely to have more money by the time they graduate. So everybody wins. The kids win, the families win, the campuses win, the workforce wins. We are exposing these kids to not only the 4-year degree, but also the trades. And I think it's a great workforce development initiative as well, and we're looking for community champions to match those dollars. So we're trying to do that school by school. So it's a pretty exciting program. How did I do, guys? Right on.
Thank you
It's
for
a-
the additional information, Robin.
And it's a really great connection too to what Fargo Public Schools is already doing at the middle school and high school level. It segues right into that, so it's a nice addition to the whole process with like what Denise Jonas is doing and things like that. So it's a great fit.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And we took 1,400 kids to NDSU one day, and they were more nervous. We're fine. We're used to taking that many kids places, so campuses were a little afraid, but we did good.
How large are those corn cobs?
They were
I'm wondering. You know,
like,
they
as
look,
long as my arm at least.
they would have provided some entertainment. John, did you have a question or comment?
Just a comment, I want to say thank you for the job you're doing growing and guiding
Thank
this
you.
program. I
Appreciate
think FPS is very lucky to have this, so thank you.
I did have a question in regard to the money raised for the Giving Hearts Day.
Yes.
How does it compare, I mean, what we most recently raised, or the community raised, to, say, the prior year? Because I know there was such
Gosh,
great success.
Yeah, the prior year, last year was the first year we included the critical needs package, we'll call it that, versus just milk. So it went from 30,000 to roughly 90. Because in large part because of that match, and very generous community. I'm always just grateful where we live. We do a nice job for all the charities involved in Giving Hearts Day.
It's all good work. It's all worthwhile. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for your work for the district, for the kids. All right, we don't have anyone that has signed up to address us this evening, so we'll move on to staff reports from the FEA. Welcome, Laura.
Howdy, everybody. I've brought a few people with me today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you wave at our Longfellow person, then I'm going to share her bragging. Then we've got Lincoln, who would like to speak for himself, and 2 Carl Ben Eielson people. So first one will come up to the microphone, and then Jen will bring it on home. So get ready. Longfellow Elementary. Because we are the Longfellow Lions, we hold what we call a DEN meeting for all staff and students 7 times a year. Each meeting highlights one of the 7 habits of happy kids and is presented by student council members and advisors. And the other thing that you'd like to share about Longfellow is Longfellow Elementary is excited to be in their first year of Compassionate Schools training.
Hi, my name is Mark Worski, and I teach 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary. This has been a very busy year at Lincoln Elementary. We started the school year with our district opener. We again celebrated the selection of Lincoln Elementary special education teacher Amanda Boyoff as Fargo Public Schools Teacher of the Year. In September, the Lincoln PTA organized our 4th annual walkathon. The PTA, students and staff raised over $13,000 to benefit programs at Lincoln such as Missoula Children's Theater, the Fall Festival Party, Climb Theater, and teacher grants. In October, the Lincoln Parent Involvement Committee hosted a family night where nearly 300 parents and students enjoyed a free pizza supper, door prizes, and played educational games supplied by Legacy Toys. These family events help build positive bridges from the school to our families. In December, the kindergarten and 3rd grade teachers invited their parents to the school for gingerbread house decorating before the holiday break. It was a great time for parents, students, and teachers to spend time together. Lincoln Elementary is piloting the Review 360 behavioral screener. Review 360 helps to identify students in need of extra social emotional support. We are in our 4th year of AVMR small group math instruction, which helps build foundational math skills. Lincoln Elementary is also an Envoy-focused school that provides training to all staff. Envoy uses common language and approaches that help create more instruction time and builds relationships with students. Lastly, Lincoln Elementary received a Vision 2020 library grant of $4,500 from the state of North Dakota. We use these funds to purchase maker space materials that students use to solve STEM problems and BBots and OzBots used with computer coding. These activities help students practice collaboration and communication skills. Anybody have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't have nearly as much prepared. My name is Evan James. I'm a 7th grade science teacher at Carl Ben Eielson. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm also a former 6th grade teacher at Carl Ben, so I'm going to report about 6th grade and 7th grade stuff going on, and then since Jen teaches 8th grade, she's going to share some 8th grade shout outs for Carl Ben. 6th grade today, actually, the Falcon team at Carl Ben Eielson put on a project-based learning activity, a day-long activity where the students, and many familiar faces here have come and helped us with the judging of our PBLs at Carl Ben. The students worked on on creating an app from the ground up for a smartphone, and they had to go through all of the development. And I know all about it because my daughter is a 6th grader on the Falcon team this year, so I heard all about it at the end of the day today. So very exciting stuff going on. Those PBL activities certainly are a great way for students to build on those collaboration, communication, the other 21st century skills. So it's very exciting that we do that, and our 6th grade teachers do a really great job of putting those on a regular basis. 7th grade, we have the Day of Compassion coming up at the end of this month. This is a very exciting day for us. Being a new 7th grade teacher, this will be my first experience with it, but I'm told it's oftentimes one of the things that students say is one of their best memories from middle school is the Day of Compassion. It's put on by a local group that comes in, and we do all kinds of team building, empathy, collaboration, all kinds of activities. It's, again, a day-long event, and my team raised some money this year using Donors Choose to help defray the costs, so our families didn't have to make those donations to help us cover the expense of the day. So it's a great exciting time coming up, and that's 7th grade.
So as Evan said, I'm Jennifer Mastert. I'm an 8th grade FACS teacher at Carl Ben Eielson, and I'm also vice president on the Fargo Education Association. 8th graders are really getting excited for Thursday. It is finals week in high school, and we take over the building at Fargo South in the afternoon, and we give kids 10 different rotations around the building, from the music to the career tech ed to the special foreign languages, the music, the theater department, and they get to see clubs and activities where upperclassmen actually tour them around, and they get excited about connecting their middle school ties to their future ties to get registering for classes that we have coming up on Thursday. Any questions for Carl Ben Eielson? No?
Any
Thanks.
questions? Thank you. Fabulous. Very, very interesting. Lots of great activities going on in the schools, in addition to the education, traditional education. Anything else, Laura? All right. Moving on, Mr. Gandhi, the superintendent's report.
Sure. I'll make my report quick. This is just a reminder for everyone that this Thursday evening will be our State of the Schools address, followed by our public focus group. So I just want to thank the board for their support in the event. I look forward to participating with our community and getting some engagement around and input around some of the topics that we have addressed. I believe Anne Marie has left some paperwork that has all the information for board members in terms of your role and how you'll be supporting that event. So if you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. Legislative update. Your name is on this one, as well as Jackie Gapp. Who would like to take
I'll
this?
take it. I think we are just getting started with legislative session, so we are, our GAC committee does monitor any bills that'll be pertinent to the school district, but at this point, I don't think that we have any updates to share that would not be covered in the GAC update.
Okay, thank you. And the RSP enrollment report. Back to you, Mr. Gandhi.
No problem. All right. So annually, we receive a report on our enrollment projections, projecting out for Fargo Public Schools for the next 5 years. You all received a packet with our enrollment for the next 5 years from this year's report. A couple of things. I think the most important information that we would use in this report will be the key considerations that you'll find on page 7. Very consistent to the reports that we've been getting in the past couple of years is that we do continue to expect to see growth in Fargo Public Schools. The level of growth obviously sometimes changes year after year based on different factors. Although these enrollment projections are traditionally above 95, 96, 97% accurate, there are some varying factors. One of the things that you'll see listed in the report is that at the time that this report was created by RSP, there wasn't any information on the diversion project that we received the update in December. That is something that could influence growth and enrollment projections, so we may see some variance there next year as well. We do have a couple of campuses outlined that either have been or potentially will be at capacity. These campuses are no different than what we've seen in the previous years in those reports as well. And we address to really go into the meat of this report, look at our enrollment numbers and see what we want to do in terms of our long-range facilities plan when we engage in the building capacity and usage task force later this semester. So you have the information in front of you. If there are any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them.
Anyone have questions regarding the enrollment report? Jennifer?
Thank you. One question I had as I read through it is I was really curious, listening to the state of the schools last year when all 3 superintendents were up there talking about these kinds of things and the work that RSP has done. Some had mentioned also doing like a side-by-side internal projection. Do we do that here at FPS too, like your own sort of analysis, or just RSP?
From what I know, and I'll defer to Dr. Groves for past practices, is we traditionally look at the RSP projections and what we know.
Besides that, all we will do is just internally as we look at one year to the next as we project forward. That will help us with the number of sections that we may need at a middle school or at a high school when it comes to certain grades or classes. That would be the internal work we would do. For example, a large 5th grade class might be moving into a middle school. That definitely shapes the staffing pattern that we have there. But other than that, we utilize this data.
And I apologize for the back and forth, but I think one thing I forgot to mention about the RSP projections is that they only include students that are in our attendance area. So when we do look at the report internally, one thing that we would look at is the amount of students that might come to Fargo Public Schools that are not in our attendance zones, and take that into consideration as well. So some of the numbers that you see for enrollment don't include students that come to our schools but are not in our attendance area.
Robin?
I have a clarifying question on page number 7. The third bullet point says this projection decreases enrollment by 2022-23 by 384 students. Was that decrease from their projection itself? We're not lowering in students is what I.
Correct. That is a
Okay.
decrease in their projection from last year to this year.
Got it. So, but we're not losing students. It's
Correct.
just off their projection. Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
No problem.
David?
In the past, Dr. Gross, you've always gone through this with us in depth. Why aren't, I understood it so much better after you were done than just trying to read through this. I appreciated the way it was done before rather than this, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I would say now would be the opportunity, if there are any other items that administration feels should be highlighted, to, go ahead and share so that we can have that additional conversation.
Sure, and I think I will also add that one of the things that is on the agenda for our winter work session is preparing for the building capacity and task force, so we do have that time allocated to go in there to do that work as well.
Does that help, David? Okay, good. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval? And then there are 2 items that have been moved down to business.
I move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of items A and B.
All right, is there a second?
With the addition of the HR addendum.
Thank you, Robin. And there's a second by Brian?
Yep.
All right. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I forgot. I was going to mention the items that are on our consent agenda. This is something that we discussed at our Aspen group training, kind of giving a little bit more of a rundown and explanation as far as the work that we do here during our board meeting. And the motion is just to approve the items on the consent agenda, but it doesn't really explain what those items are. And so I just wanted to, I'm going to list the items verbally here, what they are. And I apologize for not doing that sooner. But the first two items on the consent agenda that we've moved to business are the minutes of the meetings from December 11th and December 14th. So we'll discuss that under business. The third item is over human resources actions. So if there are people that have left or are leaving the district or positions that we are approving, there is a monitoring report, EL 15 monitoring report, and there are financial reports for November, 4 of them listed under that. Fund balance report, revenue and expenditures reports, state of bank reconciliation, and check register. So those are the items that we just approved under the consent agenda. All right, moving on to business. Board compensation will be the first item we will consider. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this? At this point, no. In fact, I don't have the hard copy of the memo in front of me. Does anyone have that so that I could read that? It doesn't require us. I had planned to read the information just so that folks would have that. Rubach, do you have it? Thank you. So this is a memo that comes from the governance committee, and it is something that annually it comes in front of the board. So I'll just read this. Board Policy GP2E says that governing style organization of the Board of Education was amended in September of 2009 to provide, quote, board compensation will be reviewed annually during budget assumption discussions. Budget assumptions are being prepared by the business office. It is therefore timely to consider board compensation at this meeting. And board compensation was set at $750 per month in 2004 and raised to $1,000 per month effective January 1st, 2009. In 2016, the board approved and then rescinded an increase to its compensation. In 2018, the board reaffirmed the $1,000 per month compensation. It is up to the board to determine whether or not to adjust board compensation. So unless there is any one that chooses to make a motion, we will not need to take any action on this at this point. All right, thank you. Brandy, did you have a question? No, okay. Brandy is not feeling well today, so she is joining us on the phone. I wanted to mention that earlier. Okay, I requested that we move 2 items from the consent agenda to business, and they are, first one would be the minutes of the December 11th meeting, and this is they're both for small corrections. The second page of those minutes, the last paragraph, I was not at that meeting, so that meeting was not adjourned by me, as it says. It was adjourned by Vice President Christy Ulrich. If that could be changed, that would be my recommendation there. Is there a motion to take that under consideration? Robin?
I move approval of the amended minutes from the last meeting stating, yeah.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second for approval of the December 11th regular board meeting minutes with the change. Is there any discussion? Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Johnson?
Yes.
Brian Nelson?
Yes.
Robin Nelson?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay. The second item was from our the minutes of our work session, Friday, December 14th, on page 3, the top of page 3, the first paragraph, the third line. I was just looking for some clarification language on that. The sentence does not read quite correctly, so I'm trying to remember. Can someone help us remember exactly what that sentence is supposed to read? Page 3, it is the first paragraph, the third line. The paragraph reads, Dr. Quinn reviewed the monitoring process of the executive limitations policies. The monitoring process is for the superintendent to provide evidence of the execution of the EL policies. The report should include documental evidence the school district the policy is being following and the district is being run as directed by the board. I am wondering how that sentence is supposed to read. Robin?
It makes sense to me. They have their responses on all the ELs, so that's what they document. If they're in compliance, at least that's how I understand it.
I just wasn't, I understand what it means. It was missing some verbiage, I believe. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment to it. I think it should read, the report should include documental evidence and insert the word that. The school district, strike the word the school district policy is being followed and the district is being run as directed by the board. So insert that and strike out the following district.
Thank you, Jim. So is that, you've made an amendment to the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, and then is there a second? Okay, any other discussion? Any discussion at all, I guess? All right, Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
David Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you for that. On to board reports. Now, we're almost into an hour. Are we feeling we want to keep going, or do you need to take a break? Keep going? All right. Are there task force updates to be given this evening, Robin or Jim?
The only update on the LREB task force is that the presentation will be on January 22nd at 4 p.m. at the old city chambers.
Yes, thank you for that reminder, Robin. And it looks like we are going to have a good representation from our board and administration there, so thank you very much. Just please encourage you to keep that time slot in mind, and then that we will be moving over here following that meeting for our regular board meeting. On to committee liaison and correspondence reports. Brian, would you like to start?
I have nothing.
And I would like to go to Brandy, since you're on the phone and not feeling so well, in case you need to get off the phone. Is there anything, Brandy, that you would like to update us on?
Yes, actually, I would. I have got my Fargo Youth Initiative. We had a meeting on December 16th. It seems so long ago. It was our strategic planning session, and we had that over at the City Hall. Location was the Meadowlark Room at City Hall. And we met there from 12:30 to 5:30, and basically the mission of the Fargo Youth Initiative is to empower the voice and the uniting of the youth of Fargo through actions and teamwork. So they just basically laid out a plan of action of what they were going to be working on throughout the year. And it was a really, really good work session. They had a few items on there like suicide awareness, some stuff on the voting age, and there was just a bunch of different topics, and it was just a nice 4-hour meeting to get everything basically in check with that group, and they did a really fantastic job. And I will give you more updates as we have another one as well on Sunday, just to kind of go over everything else that we had on this meeting. So that is all I have.
Thank you, Brandy, very much. And if you need to get off the phone early, we completely understand. Hope you feel well very soon. Christy.
The only thing to report for me is I attended the Fargo Public Schools Development Foundation meeting.
Jim?
Couple things since our last board meeting. The SEEC board had a meeting in December. We looked at a bylaw amendment to clarify that the board is actually the only group that has the ability to amend the bylaws because the language was pretty loose there. We talked about the operational plan for operating really the start of this year as Kyle's in Bismarck serving in the Senate. So that meant a lot of responsibilities got reassigned to other people. And we discussed the formation of the State Health Insurance Consortium, which we are kind of the driving force of. It's still not 100% certain it's going to move forward, but it seems to have a lot of districts that are interested in participating, so I suspect it will. Right before Christmas, I actually had a meeting with Corey Steiner, who is on the SEEC board, and Rick Jacobson, who's on the SEEC board, to do Kyle's annual review, which I have not had the time to sit down and share with him yet, but we're going to keep him if at all possible. I attended a conference call with Robin for the North Dakota School Boards Association Legislative Committee. It was just the kickoff meeting last week, and that'll be I think a weekly call on Thursday afternoons for Robin and I through the legislative session. Attended a negotiating committee meeting earlier this month. Community Development Committee met in December, and we finalized the first round of the grant requests and the recommendations that we forwarded onto the commission. There'll be another round of them coming up here probably in February to go to the commission. The Strategic Vision Planning Group for the state is scheduled to meet again on Monday, and I think that was it.
Thank you, Jim. David?
The only thing would be that we had our first negotiation session with the teachers last week, and I think it's going to go very, very well. We have an extremely professional group representing FEA. We have set another meeting, the next meeting for February 11th, and you'll be kept informed.
Jennifer?
Communications Committee will meet on Monday, the 14th at noon here, and I've invited the Emergency Management Coordinator, Mackenzie McCormick, to join us to share. As you all remember, this is a relatively new position, and so I invited her to join us to share a little bit about that, and also to ask her if perhaps on our state share-out report, so there were questions that came up during some of those safety breakouts that some of us attended, and maybe she could take that opportunity to answer some of those questions for us. The agenda is not finalized yet, so if anyone has additional items that they would like to be discussed at the meeting, please forward them to me before Thursday. That's it.
Thank you, Jennifer. John?
Excuse me. As David mentioned, negotiations did meet with the FEA this past Thursday on the 3rd. In my opinion, it was a positive and productive meeting. Ground rules were established and should receive final approval at our next meeting. As David mentioned, that will be on Monday, the 11th of February, 4:30 p.m. here. In addition to the ground rules being approved, we'll exchange our topics for negotiation. Also on the agenda, potential for a work session. A third meeting has tentatively been scheduled. I would ask that all of the negotiation committee members please check Monday, the 18th of March, also at 4:30 here on their calendars, and let me know if there's any conflicts with that as soon as you can. I also wanted just to remind the rest of the board that you're always welcome to attend all of these sessions as well. And as we found, I think at the end of sessions last year, it was actually very positive to have as many board members present as possible. So, in addition to that, I wanted to mention that the reason why I missed our last board meeting on the 11th of December was because I was had the honor of being part of a public review committee for draft content standards for the state
K-12 computer science and cybersecurity standards. I was selected as a subject matter expert. And it was a unique opportunity. I think it was a very interesting opportunity to be able to see in person the process that's used to develop standards for our educational subjects in the state of North Dakota. I know we've heard as a board here several times from Dr. Gross and the administration about the importance of standards and seeing the openness of the process, how these standards are created by North Dakotans for North Dakotans. The standards were drafted by, I believe it was 18 or 19 member committee composed of K-12 public school teachers, career and tech ed teachers, higher ed instructors, including 3 of our staff here from Fargo Public Schools. And it was a great opportunity. It was interesting to see on our committee us making sure that we were understanding that these were supposed to be concise standards of what students should know or be able to do, but it was not the curriculum. And it will be up to each locality, each district, to write their own curriculums and figure out how they're going to instruct these standards. And it was a really excellent opportunity. I have more information on that I'll distribute to the board, because I think I have a nice kind of PowerPoint slideshow from DPI that lays out this process, and I think it's just good information for us to be able to understand and to be able to explain to our constituents here in Fargo. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Robin?
On November 29th, I, along with a couple others here, attended the governance meeting. Cass Public Health did meet, but it happened to be at the same time as a retreat, so I missed the every 2-month board meeting. So GAC related, governmental affairs related, Jim was remiss in not noting that he has been named to the National School Boards Association National Policy Committee. So I think that's quite an honor, and congratulations, Jim. We did not have a GAC meeting this month, just because we're just gearing up with this session, but the next regularly scheduled meeting is February 12th at 7:30 a.m. And at that time, I would expect that we would finalize our crossover breakfast details and who's going to present what. I need your RSVPs. Jolynn is itching to make our reservations for the crossover breakfast. So after the meeting, hopefully you can stop by and I can check you off here on our list. That is an overnight, 2:18 in Bismarck, and then 2:19 is the breakfast. Also legislative assignments, I'm hoping that you can stop by and visit me about those. I did hand those out to you. Incidentally, I will be in Bismarck on this Thursday and Friday working on, and so I'll be absent for the state of the schools. I apologize for that, but I will be working on some early childhood and some behavioral health legislation while I'm there. I handed out each of you a packet that's an overview of all of our legislators. I added their committees to them as well as I highlighted some of the people that have already RSVP'd for the crossover breakfast, and those that have gotten back to me on which assignments they would like per legislator. Rebecca, I apologize, not all of yours are on here because I had already printed this by the time you sent them to me today. But this is just a tool. I can send you the electronic versions as well. There's Rebecca's things. I thought this was a cute little graphic about the makeup of our legislature. So take that for what it's worth. It's purely informational, but there's some great stats on there as far as those that have kids. 82% of our legislators have children, for example. So that's just gives you an update on who we're working with. And the last pages, I've highlighted the names of the Senate Education Committee, the House Education Committee, as well as Health and Human Services. We'll be watching those pretty closely, and eventually we're going to be watching appropriations very closely. So this is just a working document for your reference, because these will be the people that we'll be working with. I want to give you a little bit of an overview on some of the bills that we're watching. We haven't set up our tracker yet, but as you know, NDSBA has, NDCEL has, as well as DPI. A couple of the highlights that we are watching, as Jim mentioned, we were on the state GAC call. There are some Sentinel bills that'll be forthcoming. I think there will be one that'll be coming out of Grand Forks. There are also some bills to kind of assuage some of the some of the fears there. There was a bill I was just made aware of today, Senate Bill 2136, that will require all high schools to offer a semester of Bible studies, and that can be used as a half credit for your social studies requirements for graduation. That would force all school districts across the state to offer that class for 1 half credit. There are some cyber security bills as well. Apparently, Power School is going out of business. This was news to me. I read through all of these bills last weekend, every single bill. Am I right on that, Jim? Power School is going out of business. So state student information system is being offered through the state. There's also, the state wants to take over all of our cybersecurity for the school districts and every taxing entity. So I know Jim's working with Bill Westrick on some of those items. A couple of the finance and tax committee bills, their appropriations did send out their initial appropriation for our state funding program. It did not include any of the governor's 2%, so it was exactly what they gave us at the end of last year. So they're starting at ground zero, so we build from there. So don't be alarmed if you see no new money, because there isn't any right now. That's what we do during the session. Lots of mental and behavioral health bills with some early intervention services and some established community behavioral health programs. That's right in alignment with what we're looking at. Let's see here. There were just a couple more. But I think I covered them all without boring you to death, but we'll be obviously watching these all very closely. One other one I think we need to watch, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, are some of the retirement and the PERS bills, because so much of our district has their retirement through our, what is it called? PER. Okay, yep. So that's their retirement and the percentages and when they can retire. So that affects a lot of our staff as well. So it'll be a busy session. Of course, I love this stuff. We meet weekly for the state GAC call, and then we'll be also working with our local area districts on some legislation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. The president's report has been passed out. Anne Marie reminded me there are a variety of homework items listed there. Looks like we'll have our work cut out for us. Anne Marie, was there anything else that you wanted to have shared in relation to the president's report?
Well, Robin mentioned the RSVP for the crossover breakfast, because I know she and Jolyn are looking for that. So that would be great if you could talk to her about that. One thing I wanted to know, two things I wanted to note to you all, the people who had responded and wanted to go to the State of the Cities address on Thursday, your tickets have been placed at your table. If you take those, then you don't have to check in. You can just go right in. So those are at your table, and take those with you tonight, please. One thing I wanted to mention is today the chamber did put out that the State of the FM Diversion Project is going to be held on Wednesday, January 16th at 7:30 at the Courtyard by Marriott. And I wasn't sure if any of you wanted to attend that. And so if you do, if you could please let me know. That is a rescheduled Eggs and Issues from earlier in the month. If you remember, they had to cancel their earlier January Eggs and Issue because of the government shutdown. So this is their rescheduled event, and it is going to be about the diversion project. So again, January 16th, 7:30. If you are desiring to go to that, if you could tell me tonight so I could make arrangements for you, that'd be great.
All right, thank you, Anne Marie. Let's see, there has been a reminder already of the State of the Cities, or excuse me, the State of the Schools event. So looking forward to that on Thursday, but also then earlier in the morning, that State of the Cities event that Anne Marie mentioned. And again, January 22nd at 4 p.m., the meeting that we will have at the Old City Hall, in the Old City Hall chambers, along with West Fargo, to go over the findings and the recommendations of the LRE task force. Again, thank you to the members of that task force and administrations for working on that extensive project. February 12th, we are going to, after our adjournment, we are going to have our work session. And there was an email sent out about that earlier. Please let me know if it doesn't work for you to be there, but we are going to have an extended evening. It's been hard for us to find time to have a separate meeting for our work session. And if we can all stay for a few hours after that business meeting on the 12th, I think we'll be able to get much accomplished that evening. The Native American Commission met, I serve on that last week, and the powwow that they hold annually for New Year's Eve needed to be canceled because of the weather, so that everyone would be able to be safe at home. But that has been rescheduled, and it's going to be this Saturday at the Civic Center. If anyone is interested in learning about a powwow, if you haven't had the opportunity to attend, I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to bring children. I encourage you to dance. Everyone's welcome. It's a fabulous, wonderful event. And that's my report. Does anyone else have anything? All right, then, our next meeting is January 22nd, and we'll be...
President Knudsen,
Sorry, yes, John.
I would, before we adjourn, like to move that we enter executive session for the purpose of negotiation strategy as permitted under North Dakota Century Code. That'd be 44-04-19.1.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, then, we are adjourning now. It is it 6:35 PM? And the board members, okay, that clock is so funny to look at. Board members and members of administration can remain in the room, take a short break perhaps. Okay, I'd like to call back into order the regular board meeting of Fargo Board of Education. It is 7:11 PM. Is there any other are there any other items we need to address this evening? Okay, then our next meeting is January 22nd at 5:30 PM. Thank you very much. 7:12 PM. Have a good evening.